It's in a blog. I'll be linking to it. Um, Nathan Schneider is a journalist and professor of media studies at the University of Colorado in Boulder. He was among the first journalists to cover the Occupy Wall Street movement, and more recently, he authored the book Everything for Everyone: The Radical Tradition That Is Shaping the Next Economy, in which he looks at how co-ops can become the basis of a democratic economy. We caught up with Nathan in August in Berlin, asking him to share his views on the existing co-op model. How can they be modernized and applied to a digital economy? We also talked about the concept and application of decentralization practices in tech. That's the blockchain episode, going back to that. And exchange ideas on how to increase accountability and leadership in the Web 3.0 space. Here's a transcript. Are you ready?
Yeah, so at Autark, we are...
How about I ask and you play Nathan?
You want me to play Nathan? All right.
Yeah.
I'll play Nathan.
At Autark, we are building open source tools on Aragon to serve digital co-ops, and this is also one of the main topics you are exploring. ...
Yes, that's a big question for me. Are there ways in which these digital tools can help new cooperatives get off the ground more easily, but also can they be used by older cooperatives to claim some of their potential? That's a big ask because those older cooperatives are very conservative. They're very careful with their members' money and struggling to keep up with better capitalized competitors. There is some promise there, though, especially the ability to use things like DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, and shared governance technologies to recapture the lateral member-to-member relationship that made cooperatives take off in the first place.
Could you share some of your favorite functioning examples of cooperatives operating nowadays?
There are a few examples that lurk around in the economy. In the US, the most wealthy corner of the cooperative movement is the credit unions, which are also a very powerful movement here in Germany. These organizations grew by serving communities that didn't have access to financial institutions. They were able to do that because they were built upon the member-to-member relationship. They built on the idea that people in a neighborhood could decide who was creditworthy, better than some banker who never set foot there, based on relationships, based on reputation systems, based on a stake. As these institutions grew, they received public policy frameworks and regulation to support their growth, and now they operate like a nicer nonprofit version of banks. About a third of U.S. citizens are members of these institutions, which constitute a powerful piece of infrastructure where people can put their money in a place that feeds their community. But what does the next generation of traditional credit union cooperatives look like? How can we really use this model as a lever to transform the current economic system rather than just work around the edges? Another example of a contemporary cooperative is Associated Press. Because it's a cooperative owned by members of various news organizations, it is very much invested in supporting small news outlets because its membership model. Nobody accuses AP of spreading, quote, fake news. Its cooperative incentive structure results in factual, reliable information. And this is one of the few media organizations that can compare to the reach of Facebook. AP claims to reach half the population of the world every day. Not everything in the economy needs to be a cooperative, but that cooperatives can play a vital role that enable other kinds of businesses to function and have better feedback loops.
Why don't more cooperatives operate on a large scale, competing with the big tech giants?
There's nothing about cooperatives that restricts the sale other than really financing access. One characteristic of cooperatives, too, is that when they work at larger scales, they tend to work as federations, so they're not claiming the whole market, they're actually just realigning it. While working at a large scale, they actually exist to support the smaller players in the dynamism of the market, rather than to eat up the whole market all onto themselves. And that's really exciting difference, enabling them to support local and diverse businesses, rather than trying to disrupt and consume small players into non-existence.
Do you have any data on cooperatives operating globally?
The data is very hard to come by. In the US, for example, we don't count cooperatives in our censuses, although that is about to change. And data comes from self reporting. Globally, 10% of employment happens through cooperatives, and certain countries have very significant cooperative economies. In Kenya, cooperatives generate half the GDP. Wow. In northern Italy, significant portions of agricultural and even industrial activity happens via cooperatives. And in New Zealand, virtually the entire dairy market operates as a cooperative. Wow. Everyone who's been around cooperatives for a long time says that we are in an explosive moment, and the interest in this model is very high, but the barriers are also very high, as the online co op structures that people are trying to create are not yet supported by the economy and the legal frameworks. We are in the process of trying to build the ecosystem to enable appropriate financing for cooperatives in the digital economy.
Yeah, so that's a lot of underground news there that's kind of unreported on the growth of this or the existence of that. I think mentioning Italy there, like maybe that all those agricultural co-ops in northern Italy are probably that could be for the Marcon law mentioned by Wolf. So anyway, the question: are cooperatives a viable alternative to the dominant corporate models?
There is a perception out there that venture backed companies are more efficient, and that's why they get the funding, while cooperatives don't. But the VC model only became possible when legal constraints on it were lifted. Similarly, co ops have been able to scale in various sectors when supported by legal frameworks were put in place. Thus, there is a $128 billion co op bank in my area in Colorado, and there are co ops in the United States that own nuclear power plants. If we as a society want to make co ops more of a dominant economy, we can. We just need to make sure they have the tools and rules in place that they need, like any other kind of business.
Now this answer here like brings up the question in my mind of like how much of the economy needs to be cooperative before it stops being like capitalist or acting like all with all the negatives of the capitalist markets. You know that it's exploitative.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't, and that's the option represented by the other tendencies. But co-ops seem to be going way more mainstream than many other kinds of like left-leaning strategies.
Right.
So the question here is, what's the difference between old cooperative models and the most contemporary ones that you explored?
Well, a few years ago, I reported on the Catalan Integral Cooperative, a remarkable young cooperative based in Barcelona that is involved in various projects from farms and a reclaimed factory to urban housing and healthcare. I thought they must be inspired by the Mondragon Corporation, a massive worker co op in nearby Basque County. But they told me no. They didn't want jobs. Their whole purpose is to get rid of this idea that you have to have a job your whole life. Their purpose is to liberate people from capitalism and from the economy, not to just establish themselves within the industrial order. Catalan Integral Cooperative's objective is to generate a self managed, post capitalist society based on peer to peer principles. While there are certainly lessons to be drawn from the older cooperative models, such as Mondragon, the CIC example shows that there are also ways in which modern cooperatives are trying to solve different problems and have different visions for what they're trying to achieve.
No, that's a really good point there. And there's more here. We're running out of time this hour. I'm thinking this is longer than I thought it was. I don't know why I thought it was short when I skimmed it before, but maybe it just seemed shorter compared because it's Q&A. But there's a lot of great points here, especially with these new co-op, like this new co-op in Catalonia, which is different from Mondragon, which is usually wheeled out as being like this is the co-op economy we are advocating for. It kind of isn't because it is about like that's job creation, but doing it like with cooperatively. Let's do one more or two more maybe. Is it possible to register a transnational digital cooperative today?
It is, but sometimes we need to bend the rules in order to achieve the things that are commonplace in our online economy. That's one of the opportunities that the blockchain space represents, offering us a new tool set that we can use to explore and develop what it means to be a cooperative member in the new context.
Through your research in cooperatives, have you come across what is the best jurisdiction to establish your legal entity if you want to create an international worker cooperative? Because it is a global economy.
Oh, sorry. I
But we're
don't
also in the,
think there is a perfect jurisdiction. For example, right now in Colorado, where I live, our state happens to have really flexible cooperative laws, which allows for forming multi stakeholder cooperatives. So Colorado
I'm
is.
going to cut you off there.
Okay.
So we're reaching the end of the hour. Join us in about 5 minutes or so. We will continue with this transcript of an interview and discussion of co-ops, and then the various issues, past and present. I'll just start now.
All right. And this is where I'm going to cut off this video because we have finished the first hour of our broadcast. Please read the rest of the article. It is a very cool article. I'm really enjoying reading it. I'm really enjoying reading it from the perspective of this guy who knows co-ops. That's awesome. I would love to pick this guy's brain. And you can effectively pick his brain by reading the rest of the article. So go check it out. Thank you.